Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. The Sensex and the Nifty decline in trade, but Midcaps buck the trend. The Midcap index up 1%, even as the Nifty falls 0.5%. Veteran investor Raamdeo Agrawal expects the Nifty to double over the next 5 years. He's also not too perturbed by the selling of stakes by promoters and private investors. Adani Ports to acquire 95% stake in Odisha's Gopalpur ports at an enterprise value of 3,080 crore rupees. The company will purchase 56% from Shapoorji Pallonji Group and the remaining 39% from the Odisha Steve Dorez. The insurance regulator approves new surrender value regulations that entail higher disbursements for higher duration policies. The regulator also approves the Bima Sugam, an online platform where customers would have the option to choose from multiple insurance schemes. Leading in medical devices manufacturer Wipro GE Healthcare plans to invest 8,000 crore rupees in India over the next 5 years. CEO Peter Arduini expects India to be among the top 3 markets for the company, says making in India for the world will be a big part of the company's growth plan. That's an exclusive. Boeing announces a management overhaul after a series of safety incidents. The CEO will step down by the end of the year. The head of commercial airlines division will retire immediately, and the board chairman will not seek re-election. Fighting continues in Gaza despite the United Nations passing a resolution calling for a ceasefire. The rift between US President Joe Biden and Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu widens after an Israeli delegation cancelled its trip to Washington. A crucial bridge in the US city of Baltimore collapses into a river after being hit by a cargo ship. Local authorities say up to 20 people and several vehicles have fallen into the river. The Delhi police detained protesting Aam Aadmi Party workers as they attempt to march towards the Prime Minister's residence. BJP workers also protest outside the Secretariat, seeking Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal's resignation. The Delhi Chief Minister issues a second directive while under ED custody, asking his nodal minister to address issues related to healthcare services. The CEO of Starbucks India plans to open 1,000 new stores by FY28, promises to increase the pace of new launches, also assures investors the company will remain profitable despite the expansion drive. That's an exclusive. Amul goes international. The dairy giant will start selling fresh milk in the US within a week. Amul's managing director says they are betting on the Indian diaspora and have tied up with Michigan Milk Producers Association. Mumbai overtakes Beijing as the billionaires' capital in Asia. Mumbai is now home to 92 billionaires, according to the Hurun Global Rich List. Mukesh Ambani remains the richest person in India and the only Indian in the global top 10. Well, the rich list is coming up, but let's start with the market action. A mixed day of trade on the Lal Street today. Frontline indices under some selling pressure, even as mid-caps did advance in trade. The Sensex today lost about 350 points. The Nifty was down by about 92 odd points, so 0.5% lower on the Nifty. The Nifty mid-cap, as we pointed out, closed in the green, up by about 1%. So today was the day as far as the mid-caps were concerned. So we'll be standing by now to take us through the day's market action. It is another truncated week, Surabhi. We've lost Monday and we will lose Friday as well. What does the week look like?
Well, a divergent start to the holiday-shortened week, and large caps were in sync with what was happening on a lot of global indices, particularly with Wall Street pausing after its rally last week as well. So we had the Nifty falling, but it managed to retain its head above the 50 DMA, so that was one positive cue. But a lot of the other major parts of the large cap market were subdued, and I'll come back to that. The good news for the market was the rise in the mid-cap and the small-cap index, and that's where we saw some green. However, I must add here that the market breadth was negative pretty much throughout. You only had about 800 stocks advancing and over 1,500 stocks on the declining side. So that was a point of bother. Today, the buying was centered more around larger mid-caps, the bigger names. And I'll give you some examples. Interglobe moving higher on some brokerage notes. Avenue Supermart, ditto for this one as well. Zomato and HAL. HAL reminds me, actually, the overall PSU buzz is still intact in the market, whether it's mid-caps or large caps. Some examples would be RVNL, IRFC, Ircon, GAIL, BPCL, NTPC. So basically the PSU side of the market was still a little green. Life insurance stocks, of course, they had a good run because we finally have the, a final take from the insurer, from the insurance regulator on the surrender value norms, and they're not as bad as what was being earlier feared. So the likes of Max Financial, HDFC Life, ICICI Prudential, most of these stocks saw a fair amount of green. Adani Port reacting to good news. They've snapped up Gopalpur Port on the eastern side. and that kind of worked well for that stock, 2% higher. So what was the problem in the market? The problem was lack of leadership. None of the big engines were firing today. Neither IT, there was some more pressure on the frontline names, nor Reliance has been subdued and range bound for the last many sessions today included. And of course, the Bank Nifty was under pressure throughout the session as well. So leadership is missing, and the fact that we don't have too many mega Qs coming in, not too many events in this shorter week, perhaps could mean that we will spend some more time consolidating in a tight range.
All right, Surbhi, many thanks for joining us. Well, speaking of the markets, veteran investor Raamdeo Agrawal expects the Nifty 50 index to double over the next 5 years. In an exclusive with CNBC-TV18, Agrawal said that correction is an extremely necessary and essential part of the stock market movement. He believes investors should remember that this is the precise reason why equity is called a risk asset. He also said he was not too concerned by the selling of stakes by promoters and private investors. Take a look.
In last 40 years, I have seen when things were not as good as what it is today, things were not looking as rosy in 2000 or 92 and all. Still, it has given 15% return compounded, and power of compounding. So better your investors know power of compounding first to really feel the future, because future you can see only with the past. If past has compounded for 15% for last 40 years, I have no reason to believe to say it will be even 14.5. I would say rather 15.5 because of optimism, but I would say stick to 15 only, or rather consider 14.
Okay.
And 15 means you're saying every 5 years it will double, every 5 years. So let's leave first 5 years.
That's index will double.
Index
at
will
15%.
double. Of course, then you should do much better as an active participant. So 22,000 will go to 44,000 next 5 years. I would think in 5 years, index should touch about anywhere between 40 to 45,000.
Well, that's Raamdeo Agrawal. Now, global rating agency S&P has raised India's growth forecast by 40 basis points to 6.8% for the coming financial year. S&P's projection is lower than the Reserve Bank and the government's target of 7%. In its report, S&P says that restrictive interest rates are likely to weigh on demand. It also expects regulatory actions on unsecured lending to impact credit growth. S&P adds that India could see rate cuts of up to 75 basis points in the calendar year. Corporate news, Adani Ports will acquire 95% stake in Odisha's Gopalpur port at an enterprise value of 3,080 crore rupees. The company will purchase 56% stake from Shapoorji Pallonji Group, and the remaining 39% from Odisha's Steve Dore's shares of Adani Ports rose in early trade on the back of this development. Hormuz is standing by now to take us through the contours of the deal. So Shapoorji Pallonji divesting the second port in its portfolio in the last few months. This one going to Adani Ports, Hormuz.
Big relief for Shapoorji Pallonji, as you highlighted, some debt relief coming in for there, and a positive development for Adani Ports as well, as another port that they have snapped up, this time on the eastern coast. And they highlighted in their release as well that this is to maintain the east-west parity as part of this investment. So as you highlighted, they will acquire 95% stake in Gopalpur Ports. 1,350 crores is the cash consideration. The enterprise value is around 3,080 crores, and this transaction will be completed in the next quarter, which is the first quarter of FY25. Now, 56%, as you mentioned, it will be from SP Port Maintenance, which is the Shapoorji Pallonji Group unit, and the 39% stake will be acquired from Odisha Steve Doors. Now, Gopalpur Ports has an overall capacity of around 20 million metric tons, and in FY23, it handled only around 7.5 million metric tons, and that number in FY24 is likely to go up to around 11.5 million metric tons, and it is likely to earn an operating revenue of around 520 crore rupees. The management also said that they have highlighted opportunities that they have for the Gopalpur ports for achieving higher operational efficiency and infrastructure debottlenecking that will ensure further value creation going forward. Now, for financial year 24, Adani Ports as of February, which is the first 11 months of the year, the company has achieved almost 382 million metric tons of cargo volumes already, and they said that they are in line to surpass their already revised guidance of 400 million metric tons. So positive developments all around for Shapoorji Pallonji as well as for Adani Ports, and that reflected in the stock price today. Back to you.
Yes, it certainly did. Many thanks, Hormuz, for joining us. That's the latest as far as Adani Ports is concerned. Now, the insurance regulator, the IRDAI's new surrender value rules have significantly trimmed the proposed payouts. This comes as relief for life insurers who will now see only a limited margin impact in select categories. The norms will take effect from the 1st of April. Stocks of life insurers gained on the back of this news. Yash is standing by with what the revised norms mean for insurers. Yash, you had broken the story about the proposed changes that the regulator was considering. There was a lot of back and forth, and clearly industry's voice has been heard.
Well, the fear of higher surrender value for life insurance companies and hence a negative impact on their margins got completely negated with the final regulations from the insurance regulator on surrender value, which came over the weekend. Now, quickly, in a nutshell, IRDAI in December 2023 had proposed higher surrender value, which is to be paid by life insurance companies to their policyholders in case of early surrenders. And the increase was quite meaningful, almost 2x of what it exists today. But after a lot of back and forth, the final regulations which came over the weekend sort of brought back the surrender value to the same levels more or less to where it exists today. Now, just to help us understand this thing with numbers, as far as surrender value is concerned, if a policy is surrendered in the second year, has been fixed at 30% as compared to 83% proposed in the draft paper. For policies surrendered in the third year, the surrender value has been fixed at 35% versus 84% proposed in the draft paper. And finally, for policies surrendered between 4th and the 7th year, the surrender value has been fixed at 50% against 88 to 93% proposed in the draft paper, which means a significant relief in terms of the outgo which the companies would have had to pay in case of surrender value as compared to the draft paper to what the regulations have been. Now, as far as the stocks today are concerned, Max Life Insurance and HDFC Life are two stocks which are most excited because of this regulatory development, and especially Max Life because it also had the valuation support going with it, and both these companies have a higher exposure to the non-participating portfolio where surrenders are generally higher. SBI Life as well as LIC were not that excited as compared to the first set of stocks, simply because their exposure to non-participating portfolio is comparatively much lesser.
All right, Yash, many thanks for joining us. Now, specialty coffee and cocoa startup Subco has secured a $10 million in fresh funding led by Zerodha co-founder Nikhil Kamath. The round also saw investments from multiple investors, marquee names, Bloom Founders Fund, the Gauri Khan Family Trust, Bollywood actor John Abraham. In a statement, Subco has said that its valuation has increased to $34 million post this funding round. 3 months after an Alaska Airlines door panel blew out mid-air, Boeing CEO David Calhoun said he has decided to step down from the company at the end of the year. He has been under intense pressure from the regulator since this incident. Calhoun said the decision to leave was his and the timing would allow for an orderly transition. The head of the company's commercial airlines unit, Stan Deal, has quit with immediate effect and is being replaced immediately by the CEO, Stephanie Pope. The board chairman, Lawrence Kellner, whose term ends in May, will not stand for re-election either. Steve Mollenkopf, former CEO of tech giant Qualcomm, will be Boeing's new board chairman, succeeding Kellner. Mollenkopf will also oversee the search for a new CEO. Take a look. Well, that's Boeing's outgoing CEO. So what has led to this shake-up at Boeing? Mahdiya standing by with a recap of the problems when they began for Boeing and how they have impacted the company's growth prospects. Mahdiya.
Well, the 737 MAX narrow-body plane is Boeing's best-selling plane. In India, Air India Express, SpiceJet and Akasa Air fly this plane. Despite the popularity, 737 MAX has also been a problem child for Boeing. Now, David Calhoun had been a director at Boeing's board since 2009. He was appointed as the CEO in January 2020, replacing Dennis Muhlenberg, who was fired in the aftermath of the two tragic plane crashes involving 737 MAX planes. Lion Air Flight 610 and Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 were the two plane crashes in 5 months that had killed 346 people in 2018 and 2019. Now, this had hit Boeing's reputation and the planes were grounded for 2 years by the US aviation regulator. When David Calhoun took over as CEO, he had a tough task to get the popular plane returned to the skies. And he did succeed in bringing the 737 MAX back to its production lines in late 2020 by convincing the regulators that the plane is safe to fly again. Now, Boeing had started receiving orders from airlines worldwide and it had a packed order book. Boeing's board seemed happy with Calhoun and raised the mandatory retirement age for the CEO from 65 years to 70 years, just days after David had turned 64. But things started turning downwards again, with Boeing detecting a series of manufacturing flaws in the plane in 2023. And what shocked everyone was the Alaska Airlines episode on 5th of January when a door plug panel blew off mid-flight. Investigations have found that the bolts that keep the panel in place were missing after repair work at the Boeing factory. Now, Boeing's stock has suffered a 24% decline since the Alaska incident, and these issues have also led to added scrutiny to airlines across the world that have 737 MAX in their fleet.
All right, Madhya, many thanks for joining us. That's Boeing and the challenges the company faces globally. Back home, SpiceJet has said it has reached a settlement with a vendor called Export Development Canada to resolve liabilities worth 755 crore rupees. In a statement, the airline, which of late has seen a whole host of legal tussles with lessors, has said it will acquire full ownership of 13 EDC Finance Q400 aircraft. The share spiked up 4% in trade today. The Delhi Consumer Court has pulled up Amazon over, and I quote, deficiency of service and unfair trade practices. The court directed the e-commerce giant to share the contact details of the grievance officer for a transparent grievance redressal mechanism. This comes after a plea regarding Amazon's 17-month delay in issuing a refund for a defective laptop. Amul's fresh milk will soon be available abroad for the first time. This is the company set to launch 4 variants of milk in the US within a week. Speaking to CNBC-TV18, Amul's managing director, Jayant Mehta, said the company is tied up with Michigan Milk Producers Association to cater to the Indian diaspora in the country.
This is a new foray for us for the first time. We are launching fresh milk in the US. Amul has been exporting Amul butter, cheese, ghee, Shrikhand and all the dairy products to USA for the last 25 years and to more than 50 countries over the last 50 years. But this is the first time we realized that there's an opportunity for us to get into the fresh milk space in the US. And when I say fresh products, it means milk also. We are starting with our Indian recipe of Amul Gold with 6% fat, Amul Shakti, 4.5% fat, Taza 3% fat, and Slim and Trim, which is 2% fat. And soon, Amul Buttermilk, Amul Masti Dahi, Amul Paneer, and the range of fresh products will also follow.
So Amul milk all set to hit the US. On to CNBC-TV18 exclusive leading medical devices manufacturer Wipro GE Healthcare plans to invest 8,000 crore rupees in India over the next 5 years. I spoke with the CEO Peter Arduini. He said he expects India to be among the top 3 markets for GE Healthcare, adding that making in India for the world will be a big part of the company's growth plan. Take a look.
For GE Healthcare and GE Wipro, really a confidence vote about how we see the future of not only India, but the India capabilities for the rest of the world. And as you mentioned, the roughly $1 billion of investment over the next 5 years, to put it in perspective, we invested probably around $4 billion over the last 30. And so not only is it an acceleration, it's a significant step up from where we were before. But it will go into manufacturing capabilities, R&D. I think you're well aware of much of the software work that we've done here, particularly in Bangalore over the years, but how that advances more into artificial intelligence. And what I'm also very excited about is the opportunity for the robustness of the supply chain. Level 2, level 3 suppliers growing, and which will enable us to build a more robust med tech sector here.
Don't give region-wise breakup, but just the aspirational target as far as what you believe the size of the India business could be over the next 5 years.
I think it's going to be one of our top 3 biggest opportunities really around the globe to continue to expand. It's, again, I would place it there that says it will merit more and more of my time and focus, not only on how we can actually make in India for the world, but the India market and then its growth potential and what it can mean to a company like GE Healthcare.
All of your plants, the 4 plants that you manufacture out of here in India, are geared to the export markets as well. So if you can break up the revenue mix between servicing India domestic as well as what you're doing currently from India for the export market.
Yeah, I mean, we don't break all of that out right now currently on our reporting, but to give you an idea, at this point in time, the actual amount of product that is focused within India is a higher percentage of our overall sales. That's going to, that will pivot in different product areas over time. It varies by our product mix, but I would say, we have two great things happening in India, as you know. One is with the advent of more and more insurance, the growth more of the middle class. We would expect with 1.4 billion people that this market is going to continue to grow probably at a faster clip than a lot of our other markets. And then back to our supply chain discussion, as that develops, then India supplying more of the world is going to continue to grow. I would say over the long run, my hope is with the growth of the India domestic market and the supply chain capabilities, that it ends up being closer to a 50-50 over time. And we'll see how that plays out. But, for a company like us, it's a great opportunity to have this opportunity with the supply chain and the local market.
Well, that is GE Healthcare. And here's CNBC-TV18 exclusive. The CEO of Starbucks India plans to open 1,000 new stores in India by FY28. In a conversation with us, he promised to increase the pace of new launches, assuring investors that the company will remain profitable despite the expansion drive. Take a look.
The last 2 years for us has been about rapid expansion. If you look at it in the last 2.5 years, we have nearly doubled our store count in 3 years' time. We did 50 stores, we then did 70 odd stores last year, and hopefully we'll break that number this year. We are 410 stores as we speak. We opened a new store this morning in Varanasi, which also takes us to now, I think, 60 odd cities. So it is not just about the store expansion, it's also about the places that we have been to.
Starbucks India and its plans for the market. Up next, Mumbai overtakes Beijing as the billionaires' capital in Asia. Mumbai now home to 92 billionaires as per the Hurun Global Rich List. That and more when we return. Fighting between Israeli forces and Hamas continues in Gaza. This despite the United Nations passing a resolution calling for a ceasefire. The U.S. abstained from the vote rather than veto it like it had done several times in the recent past. The rift between U.S. President Joe Biden and Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu is widening after the UN vote. An Israeli delegation cancelled its trip to Washington, with the White House officials terming the decision as unfortunate. A crucial bridge in the U.S. city of Baltimore has collapsed into a river after being hit by a cargo ship. Local authorities say up to 20 people and several vehicles have fallen into the river. The governor of Maryland has declared a state of emergency. A Singapore container called the Dali was involved in the incident. According to Vessel Finder, which is a website that tracks ship movements, the ship is now stuck under the debris of the steel bridge. Rescue efforts are currently underway. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that radical Islamists were responsible for the attack on a concert hall situated on the outskirts of Moscow that led to the death of at least 137 people. Putin also maintains that Ukraine was also somehow involved, despite Kyiv denying any involvement. 11 people have been detained in connection with the attack. Back home, the Delhi police has detained protesting Aam Aadmi Party workers as they attempted to march towards the Prime Minister's residence. BJP workers also protested outside the Secretariat, seeking Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal's resignation. The Delhi Chief Minister issued a second directive while under ED custody, asking his nodal minister to address issues related to healthcare services. A Delhi court has sent BRS leader K. Kavitha to judicial custody for 14 days till the 9th of April in the alleged Delhi liquor policy scam. Earlier, the Enforcement Directorate in its remand application had alleged that Kavitha is one of the kingpins, a key conspirator and beneficiary of the excise policy scam. Kavitha, before entering the court, told media that this is not a money laundering case but a political laundering case. The number of billionaires in India only growing, so much so that Asia's billionaire capital is now an Indian city. Mumbai has propelled past Beijing to take the throne. As per Hurun's Global Rich List, the city is now home to 92 billionaires, just one ahead of Beijing. Globally, Mumbai now ranks third in terms of billionaires after New York and London. For the first time, Delhi has also made it to the top 10 cities. However, there are 3 Chinese cities in the top 10, including Beijing, Shanghai and Shenzhen, along with Hong Kong. India added more billionaires than China in a year. It saw 94 new entrants as against China's 55. Reliance Industries chairman Mukesh Ambani, the only Indian in the global top 10 on the list with a net worth of $115 billion. Adani Group's Gautam Adani at number 15 with $86 billion. HCL Tech's Shiv Nadar ranks 34. Serum Institute Cyrus Poonawalla and family at 55. Tesla CEO Elon Musk tops the global ranking with a fortune of $231 billion, followed by Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, coming in at number 2 at $185 billion. At number 3 is Bernard Arnault, chairman of LVMH. And before we wrap, here's some good news that we'd like to share with you. Money Control has further strengthened its position as India's premier business news platform, ahead of Economic Times across key metrics. As per data for the month of February, Money Control has the largest number of unique visitors at 28.46 million, maintaining its lead on page views and time spent. We'd like to take this opportunity to thank our viewers and readers. And with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. The news will continue right after this break on CNBC-TV18.